Hello world, Great Giza Pyramid. What did the structure do? Well, let's take a look at it. Number one, it's much more than a pile of rocks in the middle of the desert. Up until a couple dozen years ago, when we put the nice wooden structure on the top there, the surface of the pyramid would generate static electricity. Well, I shouldn't say generate, it would collect. Well, how would it collect static electricity? Well, easy. Every day, air blows back and forth. You get static electric brush discharge. If the pyramid was symmetrical, what would happen is the static electricity would either vent off into the ether or down to ground, depending on which way it decided it wanted to go. And it would find symmetry and be happy because nature abhors a vacuum. But this particular structure was designed with two features. Number one, it didn't have a top, so static electricity was semi-confined. And to keep it from going down to Earth, they put a ring around the 35th level. That ring around the 35th level is the largest of the rings above the entrance, and it is about 60 centimeters, 50-some centimeters in size. And when I say that, I mean its depth is like that, and then the next ones are like so. So it's really a big jump, and that helps confine the static electricity to the upper surface of the structure. Now, complemented with that, the structure has sweeps of these, the design, and what that does is help push the static electricity to the top. And anyone who doesn't believe me, you can go to surface.greatgizapyramid.com and you can check out this chart. And the chart, it was made both in the 1800s, and somebody in this last decade did it again. Luckily, the Giza complex, Giza antiquities let them do it, and they were able to map that out. They're going to hopefully have it in a little more detail, but even though the guy who did it in the 1800s still did a pretty good job. So what do they do with the static electricity? Well, what they do with the static electricity is bring it down, focus it into the Queen's chamber, and then tap it. Now, you ask how? Well, that's what the whole internal guts are for. And really quickly, within the King's chamber, they burn hydrogen and oxygen together. That hydrogen and oxygen both make steam and makes water. Both of those are funneled down into the entire system. And the steam condensates and drips. As it drips, it continues to pull down static electricity with it. The water, I believe, makes a conduit, but may not actually be. The water may just be, hey, once it condensates, no good to me anymore. Doesn't matter. Either way, it gets down there. Within the Queen's chamber, you notice that one of the sides had a really nasty crack in the wall. Well, that crack was from electrical arcing, and then when we drilled through the crack, we found the hole in the wall. But the crack was there before we drilled the hole, and the hole gave us the conduit behind it. And since we had no idea what electricity was, we didn't even know what electrical arcing was, and we didn't recognize it as electrical arcing. But what occurs is the water, as it's condensating within this area, it will eventually reach its saturation point. When it reaches its saturation point, it was milked off. I believe it was milked off to a gas within the conduit. People like Chris Dunn will tell you it was a hydrochloric solution. That's fine. Either way, it was used as a conduit to take the energy out of the area. Now, there's more when you look at the structures next to it and how they also worked into play, but this is really quickly how the system worked. Oh, didn't even touch the bottom. You might as well learn about the bottom, right? Because you can't have yin without yang. Well, down in the subterranean chamber is actually where the gases were separated. In the subterranean chamber is one place where it touches Earth, and in the grotto, which if I'm going to put it in the area, it's about there, has a conduit that goes up from there up to there, is where the other place that it touches Earth. Here is where hydrogen was made. Here is where oxygen was made. I should really say off-gassed from the water. The oxygen comes up and out of the system, has to fight through the rocks that were loosely fit, and causes a oxygen bubble. That oxygen bubble creates a air gap for the system from the outside world, further isolating it. The hydrogen is what is piped up through the holes that are drilled in the southern wall for the king to hide his scrolls, and brought up into the top of the king's chamber, above the king's chamber, where they find the seasoned shells and dust, which were impurities brought up with the upgassing. Now, the hydrogen doesn't stay there. It actually does some pressures, and the reasons why those rocks are so heavy is to offset the lift of the hydrogen, but it comes down through the hole that they don't really like to talk about in the back west north corner of the structure that is currently covered by a metal plate. It's slam on, you can feel a metal plate. Got pictures of it from the 1900s when it was covered by a grate and things like that. But the hydrogen gas actually comes up from below, or like at the bottom of that, and that is your flashback arrestor that causes the reaction that's in the king's chamber from catching in with the rest of the pool of hydrogen and causing really massive explosions. But what happens is the one and only conduit that breaches the outside structure is used to bring in air. Air has 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen. It's the oxygen that burns together with the hydrogen and creates the water. The water is what creates the water vapor. The water vapor is what actually brings the hydrogen down, or the energy down into the room. As the water vapor condensates, it loses surface area, and eventually it gets to a capacity where it off vents the electricity to the path of least resistance, which is the way the structure was made, is the conduit out the southern wall. So I think I pretty much gave everything. There is a conduit that goes up and almost to the surface of the structure. That is actually the one that is the lead for the energy to come down into the structure. As the water condensates and drips down, and as the water vapor cools and goes down, it brings it down into the system. There's a whole lot more to it. This is the simple abridged version. Thank you. Have a nice day.